Tonight all 5 stories involve hostels, motels, cheap hotels, and rented rooms. People who checked in for one night or a few days and discovered they were never really alone. Some of these came from listeners. Some I found myself. All of them stayed with me. I was 23 and staying at a backpacker hostel in a quiet beach town north of San Diego. I had just finished a shift at a coffee shop and needed a cheap bed for a couple weeks while I figured out my next move. The place was called Pacific Rest. It had decent reviews online and the photos looked clean enough. I stepped into the cold, open moment first. My hand was on the bathroom door handle at 3 in the morning. I pushed it open. There was a man standing inside the shower stall with the curtain half pulled back. He was completely still. His eyes were open and he was looking straight at me. He had been in there the whole time I had been trying to sleep. That is how it started. I need to go back to the beginning so you understand how I got there. Everything felt normal when I first arrived. I pulled my old Civic into the gravel lot around 6 in the evening. The sun was still bright over the ocean and the air smelled like salt and fried food from the taco truck across the street. The front desk guy was a tall kid with a nose ring who barely looked up from his phone. He gave me a key on a plastic fob and pointed me toward the second floor. Room 12. Shared bathroom down the hall. I dropped my backpack on the lower bunk near the window. There were 4 beds in the room. 2 were already claimed by a German couple who were out surfing. The top bunk across from me had a duffel bag, but no one around. I made the bed with the thin sheets they provided, plugged in my charger, and went downstairs to the common area. A few people were cooking pasta in the kitchen. Someone had left a 6-pack of beer in the fridge with a note that said "Help yourself." I took one and sat on the couch flipping through my phone. The place felt like every other hostel I had stayed in during the last year. A little worn but safe enough. I spent the first couple nights without anything strange. I worked my shifts, came back late, showered, and slept. The German couple left after 3 days. A new girl moved into their bunk. She was from Oregon and kept mostly to herself. The duffel bag on the top bunk stayed there, but I never saw the owner. I figured whoever it belonged to was out during the day like everyone else. On the 4th night, I noticed the first wrong detail. I came back from work around 11. I always left my water bottle on the small table by my bed. When I walked in, the bottle was on the floor next to the wall. I picked it up and set it back. Maybe I knocked it over earlier and did not remember. I shrugged it off and went to brush my teeth. The shared bathroom was empty. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. I washed my face and headed back to the room. The next night the wrong details started adding up. I woke up around 2 in the morning needing the bathroom. The hallway was quiet except for the hum of the vending machine. I used the toilet and washed my hands. When I stepped back into the hallway, I noticed the door to room 12 was open a few inches. I had closed it when I left. I know I did because the latch always stuck and I had to push hard. I walked over and pushed it shut. Inside the room, everything looked normal. The duffel bag was still on the top bunk. I climbed into my bed and tried to sleep. The following evening, I got back earlier than usual. The Oregon girl was gone for the weekend. I had the room to myself. I took a long shower in the shared bathroom. When I came out, my towel was not on the hook where I left it. It was folded neatly on the bench outside the stall. I had not folded it that way. I stood there dripping water on the tile for a minute. Then I told myself the cleaning person must have come through. I dried off and went back to the room. That night I could not sleep well. Around 1:30, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. They stopped right outside my door. I listened. Nothing. I got up and checked the lock. It was still fastened. I went back to bed. At 2:45, I woke up again. This time I heard breathing. Slow and steady. It sounded like it was coming from above me. From the top bunk across the room. I lay perfectly still. The breathing continued. I had not heard anyone come in. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The top bunk was empty. The duffel bag was there but nothing else. I shined the light around the room. Nothing. I left the flashlight on for a while and eventually fell back asleep. The escalation kept building. The next morning, I went downstairs for coffee. The front desk kid told me the hostel was at capacity that night. I asked if anyone had complained about noises. He laughed and said people always hear things in old buildings. I went back upstairs. When I opened the door to room 12, my water bottle was on the floor again. This time it was in the middle of the room. I picked it up. The cap was off. I never left the cap off. That afternoon I decided to check the duffel bag. I felt weird about it, but I unzipped the top. Inside were clothes that smelled like they had not been washed in weeks. There was a notebook. I flipped it open. Pages and pages of handwriting. Times and dates. Descriptions of people in the hostel. What they wore. What time they came back. One entry had my name. Not my full name, but the name I had written in the guest book downstairs. It described the color of my backpack and the fact that I slept on the lower bunk by the window. The last entry was from the night before. It said I woke up at 2:45 and used my phone light. I put everything back exactly as I found it. My hands were shaking. I went downstairs and asked the front desk kid if he knew who was in the top bunk. He checked the computer and said the booking was under a name that did not match any ID they had seen. The guest paid cash and had been there almost 3 weeks. I should have left right then. Instead, I went to work and tried to act normal. When I got back that night, the room was dark. I turned on the light. The duffel bag was gone. I felt relief for about 10 seconds. Then I noticed my own backpack had been moved. It was open. My wallet was on the bed. Everything was still inside, but the cards were in a different order. I checked the bathroom next. The shower curtain was pulled all the way across. I had left it open that morning. I pulled it back slowly. There he was. The man standing in the shower stall. He was completely still. His eyes were open and he was looking straight at me. He had been in there the whole time I had been trying to sleep. He was wearing the same gray hoodie from the descriptions in the notebook. His face was thin and unshaven. He did not move. He did not speak. He just stared. I backed out of the bathroom and ran. I did not stop until I was in my car with the doors locked. I drove to a motel on the other side of town and paid for a room with cash. The next morning, I went back to Pacific Rest to get my things. The front desk kid said the guy in room 12 had checked out at 6 that morning. They never saw him again. The police found nothing when they looked. But one of the cleaning ladies told me later that they sometimes found food wrappers and a sleeping bag hidden behind the water heater in the utility closet. She said it looked like someone had been living back there for months. I never went back. The next story comes from a woman who checked into a roadside motel in Illinois and started noticing details in her room that did not belong to her. I was 35 and driving cross-country for a new job. I had been on the road for 2 days when I pulled into the Pine Valley Motel just outside Peoria. It was late and I was exhausted. The sign said vacancies and the parking lot had maybe 6 cars. I just needed a bed and a shower. I stepped into the bathroom to brush my teeth before bed. The mirror was fogged up like someone had just taken a hot shower. I wiped it clear with my hand. Written in the condensation were the words, "You are not alone." The letters were still dripping slowly down the glass. Let me pull back and explain how I got to that moment. The drive that day had been long but peaceful. Cornfields stretched out on both sides of the highway. I listened to podcasts and stopped once for gas and terrible coffee. The motel looked like every other budget place I had stayed in over the years. Single story. Doors opening straight to the parking lot. A small office with a buzzing neon open sign. The woman at the desk was in her 60s with short gray hair. She gave me room 7 and a key on a big orange tag. She said the ice machine was broken, but the vending machines worked. I thanked her and pulled my suitcase to the room. The air inside smelled like old cigarettes and cleaning spray. The bed was made, but the comforter had a few small holes. I did not care. I was only staying one night. I unpacked my toiletries and took a long hot shower. The water pressure was weak, but it felt good after 2 days in the car. I ordered a pizza from the place next door and ate it while watching a show on my laptop. Everything felt ordinary. I called my husband and told him I would reach the new city by tomorrow evening. He said he missed me. I missed him too. I brushed my teeth and climbed into bed around 11. The first wrong detail came around 1 in the morning. I woke up thirsty. I turned on the bedside lamp and walked to the bathroom for water. The towel I had used after my shower was hanging on the rack, but it was wet again. Soaking wet. I had hung it up dry. I touched it. The water was still warm. I stood there for a minute trying to make sense of it. Maybe the shower head dripped. I drank my water and went back to bed. I woke again at 3. The room was cold. The air conditioner was off. I got up to adjust the thermostat. That is when I noticed the closet door was open. I had closed it earlier because the empty hangers inside made noise when the AC ran. I closed it again and got back under the covers. The next wrong detail hit harder. I could not fall asleep after that. I lay there listening to the occasional car pass on the highway. Then I heard a drawer open in the bathroom vanity. Slow. Quiet. I sat up. The sound stopped. I grabbed my phone and walked to the bathroom. The middle drawer was open 2 inches. Inside were the little Motel soaps and shampoos. 1 shampoo bottle was turned label down. I had not touched them, but I went back to bed and left the lamp on. Around 4:30, I heard footsteps in the room. Soft, bare feet on carpet. They went from the closet area toward the bed and stopped. I did not move. I pretended to be asleep. The footsteps stayed there for what felt like minutes. Then they retreated to the closet. The door clicked shut. In the morning, I almost left without saying anything. But I needed coffee. I went to the office. The same woman was there. I asked if anyone had complained about noises in room 7. She looked at me for a long second and said no one had been in that room for 2 days before me. I told her about the wet towel. She said sometimes the pipes acted up. I did not mention the writing on the mirror because by then the condensation was gone and I was starting to doubt myself. I decided to stay one more night because the next town was 4 hours away and I was too tired to drive safely. That afternoon I went to a nearby diner and tried to shake the feeling. When I returned, the room had been cleaned. The bed was made. But on the nightstand was a small notebook I had never seen before. It looked old. I opened it. Inside were dates and room numbers. Room 7 appeared many times over the last year. Next to my date, someone had written, "Woman, 30s, dark hair, talks on phone to husband." I left the notebook exactly where I found it and went outside to call my husband. While I was on the phone, I saw the cleaning cart parked 2 doors down. No one was around it. I walked over and looked inside the cart. There was a ring of keys. One of them had a big orange tag like mine. The number was 7. I went back to my room and packed as fast as I could. The sun was setting. I carried my suitcase to the car. Before I drove away, I looked back at the room. The curtain in the window moved. Just a little. Like someone had been watching and stepped back quickly. I drove through the night and did not stop until I reached my new apartment. The police found nothing when the manager finally let them check. But the woman at the desk quit the next week. No one ever saw where she went. I still do not know who was in that room with me. The next story comes from a man in his 50s who pulled into a small inn in Texas after a long haul and realized the room had been prepared for someone else. I was 52 and had been driving trucks for 28 years. I pulled into the Desert Rose Inn off I-20 just west of Abilene around midnight. My rig needed fuel and I needed sleep. The lot was mostly empty except for 2 other semis and a few cars. I opened the door to my room and turned on the light. On the bed was a set of clothes. My exact size. A blue plaid shirt like the one I was wearing. Jeans. Even the same brand of boots I had on my feet. They were laid out neatly as if waiting for me to change into them. I need to explain how normal the night started. The drive had been routine. Long stretches of dark highway with nothing but my headlights and the occasional rest stop. I listened to country radio and drank too much coffee. The Desert Rose looked like a decent enough place for a few hours of sleep. The night manager was a quiet guy in his 40s who handed me the key and said room 14 was ready. I parked my truck, grabbed my duffel, and walked across the cracked asphalt. The room smelled like pine cleaner. The bed was made. The TV remote was on the nightstand. I took off my boots, washed up, and sat on the edge of the bed checking my logbook. Everything felt ordinary for a truck stop in. The first wrong detail was the clothes. I called the front desk. The manager said no one had been in the room since it was cleaned that afternoon. I described the outfit. He was quiet for a moment and said he would send someone to check. No one came. I moved the clothes to the chair and tried to sleep. Around 2, I woke up. The clothes were back on the bed. Folded differently this time. The boots were placed at the foot of the bed, pointing toward the door. I turned on every light. I checked the closet and bathroom. Empty. I put the clothes outside the door and chained the lock. I lay back down but sleep would not come. At 3:15 I heard the TV turn on by itself. Low volume. A local news channel. The story was about a truck driver who had gone missing 2 years earlier on this same stretch of highway. The photo they showed looked a lot like me. Same build. Same kind of cap. I got up and unplugged the TV. The screen went black. Then the bathroom light turned on. I walked over. The shower was running. Hot steam filled the small room. I reached in and turned it off. When I pulled my hand back, there was something on the tile floor. A driver's license. My face. My name. But the expiration date was 2 years in the future. I left the room immediately. I drove my truck to the fuel island and waited for sunrise with the doors locked. When the sun came up, I went back to the office. The manager was gone. A woman I had not seen before said he had called in sick. She gave me a refund without asking questions. The police found nothing unusual in room 14. But the missing trucker case from 2 years ago was still open. They never found his rig or his body. I still drive that route sometimes. The Desert Rose Inn is still there. Room 14 always has the Do Not Disturb sign on the door. The next story comes from a young woman who booked a bed in a busy New York City hostel during a summer internship and learned the walls were not as thin as she thought. I was 28 and interning at a marketing firm in Manhattan. I found a cheap bed in a large hostel in the East Village because rent was impossible. The room had 8 beds and a single shared bathroom. It was loud, but I was only there for 6 weeks. I woke up one night to the sound of someone whispering my full name from the other side of the wall. The wall that separated my bed from the maintenance closet. The voice knew my middle name. It knew where I grew up. It asked if I was sleeping well. Let me take you back to the start. I arrived in the city exhausted but excited. The hostel was in an old brick building with narrow hallways. My bed was in the corner near the window that looked out on a fire escape. The other residents were mostly students and travelers. People came and went at all hours. I kept my things in a locked locker and tried to stay out of the way. The first few days were fine. I worked long hours and came back late. I would shower and fall into bed listening to the sounds of the city. One night, I noticed a small hole in the wall near my pillow. It looked like someone had drilled it for a cable or something. I covered it with tape and forgot about it. The wrong details started small. My phone charger would be unplugged when I knew I left it plugged in. My towel would be slightly damp in the morning, even though I had not showered since the night before. I blamed it on the shared space and busy cleaning schedule. Then the whispering started. At first I thought it was someone in the hallway, but it was too clear, too close. It happened around 3 or 4 in the morning. The voice was male. Calm. It would say things like, "Sarah Elizabeth, you left your laptop open again," or, "The red blouse looks nice on you." I never told anyone my middle name at the hostel. I started sleeping with earbuds in. It did not help. One night I woke up and the tape over the hole was gone. I shined my phone light into it. There was an eye looking back at me. It did not blink. It was only a few inches away. I screamed and ran to the front desk. The night attendant checked the maintenance closet. It was locked. He said only staff had keys. I demanded they open it. When they finally did, the closet was empty except for cleaning supplies and a small stool positioned right against the wall where the hole was. I moved to a different room that night. The next morning I packed my things and left the hostel for good. I found a more expensive place with private rooms. A week later, the intern coordinator told me the hostel had been shut down temporarily. Someone had found cameras hidden in several of the shared rooms. Small ones. Wireless. Pointed at the beds. I never went back. But sometimes when I am home alone, I still hear my full name whispered right before I fall asleep. The final story comes from a father of two who rented a vacation condo in Florida for a family trip and discovered the previous guests had never really left. I was 41 and had saved for months to take my wife and kids to Orlando for a week. We rented a 2-bedroom condo through an app. It was supposed to be perfect. Close to the parks. Clean. Affordable. I opened the closet in the master bedroom to hang our clothes. On the top shelf was a row of small cameras. 6 of them. All pointed toward the bed. The lenses were still clean. The little red lights were off, but the batteries looked fresh. I need to go back so you understand. The drive down from Georgia was long, but the kids were excited. We arrived in the evening. The condo was on the 3rd floor of a gated complex. The code worked. The key box opened. Inside, everything looked nice. White furniture. A big TV. A kitchen with new appliances. The kids claimed their room and started unpacking. We ordered food and watched a movie. My wife and I went to bed around 11. The place felt comfortable. A little impersonal, but that was expected for a rental. The first wrong detail came the next morning. I found a phone charger plugged in behind the nightstand. It was not ours. I unplugged it and set it on the counter. Later that day, it was plugged in again. My wife said she had not touched it. I unplugged it once more. That night, I woke up to the sound of the front door lock turning. I got up quietly. The chain was still on. The deadbolt was locked. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. When I turned around, my wife was sitting up in bed. She asked who was at the door. I told her no one. The next 2 days, the wrong details multiplied. Cabinets would be open that we had closed. The kids' toys would be arranged differently. One afternoon, my daughter said she saw a man in the hallway outside the bathroom, but when we looked, no one was there. She described a tall man in a blue shirt. The same color as the shirt I had worn the day before. On the 4th night, I could not sleep. I got up to get water. In the living room, the TV was on. Muted. It showed the security camera feed from the front door of the complex. A man was standing at our door. He was looking straight up at the camera. He looked familiar. Then I realized it was me. Same height. Same hair. Same posture. But I was in bed. I woke my wife. We packed everything as quietly as we could and left before sunrise. We drove to a different hotel and spent the rest of the trip there. The rental company said they would investigate. They sent us a refund. A month later, I received a package at home. Inside was a USB drive. On it were videos. Hours of footage from inside the condo. Every room. Every night we were there. But the timestamps started 2 weeks before we arrived. Someone had been living there and watching the previous guests too. I never went back. The police found nothing because by then the condo had been cleaned and rented to someone else. But I still check the corners of every room we stay in. And sometimes I wonder if the man on the camera is still waiting for the next family to check in. Thank you to everyone who sent these stories in. If you have ever checked into a hostel, motel, or rented room and something did not feel right, send it to the email in the description. I read everything. And the next time you slide that key card into a lock, maybe check the closet first.